The best new cards from Lost Caverns of Ixalan have been found for Commander. This set is filled with tons of sweet and evocative new card designs, pushed envelopes for returning mechanics, and some truly breathtaking art depicting the various critters of Ixalan, delving deep into the core of their plane. Not to mention about half a dozen sorely needed reprints, from Cavern of Souls to Resplendent Angel to the growing rights of Itlamok. Mark my words, Lost Caverns of Ixalan is definitely a set to remember. Not to mention some of the best new Commander cards for your deck. That's right, we are covering the best new cards not to be run as Commander, but rather to be run in the 99 of your Commander decks. Honestly, narrowing all of these sweet new cards to a list of only 5 plus an honorable mention was no easy task. This set is chock full of fantastic cards, from role players for niche archetypes to unique and powerful new staples for a wide variety of decks. Remember, this is a list of cards specifically for being used in the 99. Any legendary creatures we mention, while they may indeed make a cool commander, are there because of their possible function within a deck. Let's jump right in. But first, an amazing event is coming to Whatnot, sponsor of this video. As you know, Whatnot is a social media marketplace where you can discover a multitude of things, including, but certainly not limited to, Pokemon and Magic the Gathering cards through live video shopping. And of course, as always, I can give each and every one of you who sign up using my invite code $15 in credit to spend on whatever you want on Whatnot, but there's something super special coming soon. Whatnot provides a platform to connect and interact with people who share your interests, for sellers to interact with buyers, and check this out. Between November 16th and 19th, Whatnot will be hosting their biggest card show ever, with 500,000 cards and over 1,000 live hosts. The weekend will be jam-packed with opportunities to connect with other TCG players and find exciting cards to add to your collection. And although I unfortunately will be unable to participate, as I'll be traveling to the Flesh and Blood World Championships in Barcelona, I encourage you to attend and engage with some of your favorite creators from Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, everything. So be sure to check out the biggest card show ever on Whatnot. 500,000 cards, over 1,000 live hosts starting tomorrow. You might just see something you want to pick up, so why not get $15 free credit from me by using the link in this video's description towards anything you want: Magic, Pokemon, Flesh and Blood, whatever strikes your fancy over on Whatnot. Thank you, Whatnot, for sponsoring this video. Let's begin with an honorable mention: Dauntless Dismantler. Dauntless Dismantler is an unassuming-looking 1/4 human artificer for 1 generic and 1 white mana. Dauntless Dismantler has 2 abilities. The first makes artifacts your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. The second is an activated ability. Sacrifice Dauntless Dismantler and pay XX in white. Destroy each artifact with mana value X. Take that, Soul Ring, and any other Soul Rings. The artifacts enter tapped clause on Dauntless Dismantler is not exactly new design territory. Several Commander staples, including Manglehorn and Blind Obedience, already accomplished a similar, or even identical, goal. What pushes Dauntless Dismantler above these similar effects is the artifact board wipe that comes with the Stacks piece. Stacks pieces are great at slowing your opponents down in the early to mid game, but they do so only temporarily. Sure, their Soul Rings and other artifacts enter tapped, preventing your opponents from using them for a full turn cycle. That's certainly useful. But what about later, when their artifacts are back at full capacity? Or worse, what if you draw your Stacks piece later, after your opponents have already developed their boards? Dilemmas like this are precisely why Dauntless Dismantler is such a good card. At the low cost of just 2 mana, Dauntless Dismantler serves as an efficient roadblock to stymie your opponent's development. Then, when the time is right, that is, when there are multiple scary artifacts of the same mana value on your opponent's side of the field, you can crack Dismantler to send them back to the Stone Age. At least part of the way back. Remember that it only sweeps artifacts with exactly X mana value, not X or less. This also includes your own artifacts, by the way, so you might want to be careful about that part. Regardless, Dauntless Dismantler is a fantastic Stacks piece / removal spell combo card. The flexibility offered by the card, as well as how seamlessly it scales into the late game, makes this a fantastic addition to the roster of white Commander cards. All right, now on to the main event. Number 5 on the list is Bonehorde Dracosaur. Bonehorde Dracosaur is a 5-mana, 5/5 red dinosaur dragon. A dinosaur dragon with flying and first strike. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exiled a land card this way, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token. If you exiled a non-land card, create a treasure token. Did I mention this thing was a dinosaur dragon? All right, beyond being the coolest thing 5-year-old Prof would ever have been able to dream of, this big critter is a truly fantastic card. A giant, sturdy, evasive beater with built-in card advantage, mana generation, and an increased board presence. Bonehorde Dracosaur quite literally does it all. Drawing 2 extra cards a turn would be exciting enough in and of itself, but the fact that it gives you a treasure token to help you cast any spells you exile and or a 3-power body to make up for any lands you exile is just wow. This card is just the quintessential red card advantage engine. And again, on top of all of this, it's a 5/5 with flying and first strike. Bonehorde Dracosaur can get in for big chunks of damage in the air, threaten planeswalkers, or just, sit back and block, winning virtually any combat it gets tangled up in thanks to first strike. Now, it's worth mentioning that Bonehorde Dracosaur does have one noteworthy drawback. It doesn't do anything unless you untap with it. In today's day and age, expensive cards that you have to untap with are a liability. You might consider pairing your Dracosaur with a Lightning Greaves or a Swiftfoot Boots to protect it, since it will absolutely be a high priority murder target for your opponents. But if you untap with Dracosaur, you will find yourself pulling ahead very, very quickly. And again, Dinosaur Dragon! Coming in at number 4 on the list is Blue Sol Ring. Can you believe they reprinted Sol Ring but made it blue? All right, well, not exactly, but Enigma Jewel does come close, as it costs 1 blue mana and taps for 2 colorless mana, but the drawback is that mana can only be spent activating abilities. Also, your opponents might as well have a Dauntless Dismantler in play because this thing enters tapped. But on top of providing a big mana boost for activated abilities, Enigma Jewel has a doozy of a craft ability for a whopping 9 mana. Gosh, Professor, what is a craft ability, you ask? All right, settle in and put your reading glasses on. Let's see if I can do this all in one breath. Craft with 4 or more non-lands with activated abilities 8 blue. Exile the 4 or more from among other permanents you control and or cards in your graveyard. Return this card transformed under its owner's control. Craft only as a sorcery. Oh, okay, got all that? No? Well, just rewind the video. I can't say it all again. I actually think there might be a typo somewhere in the reminder text, but it's impossible to know for sure because parsing the mountain of text on this card is a bit like trying to read a copy of War and Peace that's been written out in cursive. Here's what the card does, I think. As a sorcery, you may pay 9 mana, at least one of which must be blue. Then you exile the Enigma Jewel and at least 4 other non-land permanents you either control or that are in your graveyard. If the craft ability resolves, return the Enigma Jewel to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. The transformed version of this card is, okay, more text. All right, so this card has all the activated abilities of the cards you exiled to craft it, but you can only use each ability once each turn. Whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, not just an ability that Locus of Enlightenment itself has, but any non-mana activated ability you control, copy it, and you may choose new targets. Right, got it. That wasn't so bad, was it? Essentially, the Enigma Jewel is a fantastic card if your deck has lots of non-land permanents with activated abilities. Maybe those cards are artifacts, but they don't need to be. On its front side, the Jewel provides you with a Sol Ring-like amount of mana to activate those abilities. Then, if you want to, and you have the requisite material, you may fuse a bunch of stuff together to make the Locus of Enlightenment. Generally, I would recommend prioritizing doing this with stuff in your graveyard rather than on the battlefield, as this is a great way to get some pseudo-recursion going. But regardless of what your fodder is, Locus of Enlightenment will provide you with a ton of additional value. At first glance, Enigma Jewel may only cost 1 blue mana, but in reality, it also costs about a year of your life reading all of the text on the card. Just trust me, this card is very good. So what's number 3 on our list? Number 3 is a fantastic tool for green-based land strategies, and that card is Spelunking. Spelunking is an enchantment for 2 generic and a green mana. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Then you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. If that land is a cave, you gain 4 life. Additionally, any lands you control enter the battlefield untapped. This last clause is the thing that you put Spelunking in your deck for, but the enter the battlefield effect eliminates any of the downside that comes with casting a 3-mana spell at sorcery speed that otherwise wouldn't immediately impact the board. By replacing itself and ramping you in addition to powering up all your lands with enter the battlefield tapped drawbacks, Spelunking is one of the best new ramp spells printed in some time. There are so many commonly played lands in EDH that enter the battlefield tapped. From Evolving Wilds variants to tapped utility lands like Bojuka Bog, to cards like Hour of Promise that tutor up lands to the battlefield tapped, to conditionally tapped lands like the Fast Lands and Slow Lands, to cards that require a cost to enter untapped like Shock Lands. In addition to the more consistent and mundane value that Spelunking provides, the card also pops off with some big finisher spells like Scapeshift and Splendid Reclamation. Honestly, I could spend the rest of this video listing lands and other cards that Spelunking is great with, but I think you get the idea. Making your lands enter untapped is a huge deal. Now, Spelunking isn't an entirely unique effect. Amulet of Vigor accomplishes a similar thing, as does the Sultai commander Archelaus. But in a 99-card singleton format, redundancy is huge. And outside of Archelaus decks, your only access to something like Spelunking before was Amulet. And again, putting Spelunking into play doesn't just make your lands enter untapped. It has a free explore on top of it. I guess it's only fitting that a set about exploring Lost Caverns has a busted card called Spelunking. Alright, we're down to the top 2 best new cards from Lost Caverns of Ixalan for use in the 99 of your commander deck. As always, these picks are potent and powerful, and I could see many of you making an argument that number 2 should be where number 1 is, and number 1 should be where number 2 is, but I think you'll agree that whether or not you'd have put them in this exact order, these are indeed the most exciting new cards to play in your commander deck. Let's take a look. Number 2 on the list is yet another great white card. What a blessed timeline we live in. Thousand Moons Smithy is a legendary artifact for 2 generic and 2 white mana. When it enters the battlefield, you get to make a super construct. That is, you get to make a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with power and toughness equal to the total number of artifacts and creatures you control. So for 4 mana, you get a big dude. How big? Well, at least 2/2 to start, since it counts itself and the smithy. But wait, that's not all. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may tap 5 untapped artifacts and/or creatures you control. If you do, transform Thousand Moons Smithy. Transform into what, you may ask? A legendary artifact land, of course. Barracks of the Thousand taps for a white mana. Whenever you cast an artifact or creature spell using mana produced by this land, make another super construct. Gnome. So the full tally is this. You pay 4 mana and get a big guy. Then later you can tap 5 artifacts or creatures, 2 of which could be the big guy you made and the smithy itself, to ramp into an additional land in play, which is notably an artifact in addition to a land. And of course, whenever you cast an artifact or creature with that land, you make more big guys. Thousand Moons Smithy is very good. It is very easy to start popping off with this card in play. Even if you're only activating the barracks once per turn cycle, that's still a free big guy every turn who not only gets progressively bigger, but also pumps all your other big guys. And all that's before you even pair this thing with something like Unwinding Clock. Remember, the land is an artifact. That means with an Unwinding Clock in play, it untaps on everyone else's turn. Then, if you have a way to cast artifacts or creatures at instant speed, either because you have a Leyline of Anticipation, or good old Vidalcan Orrery in play, or because those spells themselves have flash, you'll be making a whopping 4 progressively bigger guys every single turn cycle. And that's just one idea, I'm just spitballing here. There's a lot you can do, and the point is this card is fantastic, and can be made even more fantastic if you build your deck to maximize its potential. So what is the number 1 best new card for Commander for use in the 99 of your deck? Well, the number 1 card from Lost Caverns of Ixalan for the 99 in Commander is Roaming Throne. a creature synergy card to end all creature synergy cards. Or rather, to boost all other creature synergy cards to the moon. Roaming Throne is a 4/4 Golem artifact creature with Ward 2 for 4 generic mana. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Roaming Throne is that creature type in addition to its other types. If a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers again. If that ability sounds familiar, that's because it's the same ability printed on Harmonic Prodigy, except Roaming Throne works with any creature type, not just shamans or wizards. As a colorless mimic, Roaming Throne is an instant staple in any creature deck, regardless of color identity. In Lathril, Roaming Throne doubles the number of elves that Lathril creates when she hits an opponent. In Ur-Dragon, it doubles the number of cards you draw and the number of permanents you put into play from your hand. In Yuriko, the number of triggers whenever a ninja deals combat damage. In Mirim, it gives you 2 dragon token copies rather than just 1. If all it did was trigger your creatures an additional time, this card would already be great. But on top of its incredibly useful ability, this card is also just a 4/4 body with Ward 2. Being a 4/4 is a big deal. You likely won't want to involve Roaming Throne in any messy combat situations, so oftentimes the Roaming Throne will actually be quite stationary, holding back to block instead. But since it's a 4/4, it's actually a very effective blocker in its own right. And of course, while your opponents may want to remove the throne from your board, they'll need to pay the 2 mana Troll Toll, or the Elf Toll if you're playing elves, or the Merfolk Toll if you're playing Merfolk. Well, you're not playing Merfolk. Actually, you might be playing Merfolk. They're good again, or they're good for the first time. They were always good. It's the metas that got small. Where was I? Oh yes. Well, there are a lot of cards in Lost Caverns of Ixalan that are Ixalant. No other card will have quite as much impact as Roaming Throne, because no other card will be nearly as ubiquitous as Roaming Throne. So if you're building a creature deck, any creature deck, you'll want to put Roaming Throne into it. And while these may be the best new cards for Commander, there's a host of other awesome new cards from Lost Caverns of Ixalan for formats like Modern, Pioneer, even Pauper. Check out our top list of the most powerful new cards for those formats, all wrapped up in a single video here. And I also want to hear from you. In a set of this many good cards for Commander, I'm bound to have missed something you're excited for. What card from Lost Caverns of Ixalan are you most excited to put in your Commander's 99? Let me know in the comments below. Hey, thanks once again to Whatnot for sponsoring this video. Remember, starting tomorrow, all the way from November 16th through the 19th, Whatnot will be hosting their biggest card show ever. With over 500,000 cards and over 1,000 live hosts, this weekend will be jam-packed with opportunities to connect with other TCG players and find exciting cards to add to your collection. And why not get started with $15 free credit to spend during this event on anything you want, anywhere you want, on Whatnot? Just use the link in this video's description and you'll get that $15 credit to use towards Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, whatever strikes your fancy over on Whatnot. This card show is an event like no other, so I hope you do not miss it.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Secret partners in Commander. And so the goal is to eliminate the other people who are not on your team.
Two-headed giant with an identity crisis.
Not even close.
Hello, I'm a girl named Ron. My commander is Captain Sisay.
What's up, guys? Ramp Gang, Mental Misplay, you know the vibe. Playing Saruman.
Hi everyone, I'm Maldhound. I am playing Henzi Toolbox Tori.
Today I am playing Garth One-Eye, and this is the Wish Granting deck.
How much red mana do you have available?
You want to know a cool thing about Black Lotus?
It makes any color.
You want to know how much Black Lotus costs?
$250,000,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For the synthesis pod.
I have one question about that. We're teams, right?
Get the creature. I'll take care of the Cathar's Crusade.
I guess we know who's the partners.
He's been trying to tell me he's my partner, but I don't know what to do.
Do you not like my dragon? Yes, it is all graveyard.
I mean, I wish I had that dragon.
Oh, I heard another wish. I heard another wish.